Whatever you do, as you're trying to transform yourself, your life, developing new, or at least trying to develop new habits to improve the quality of your life, perhaps listening to talks like this, or reading books, memorizing quotes from people that you have come to respect and admire, or try to mimic their lives, etc. Please do realize that majority of people are living make-believe lives, or make-believe lives. It's a superficial thing. It doesn't change the person. That's why it's only a thin layer upon the thick strata of what they have already become accustomed to. Thinking, feeling, doing, acting. Because it takes energy to change. It takes energy to go deeper than skin deep. It takes energy to be truthful to yourself, very first person that matters, yourself. To be honest with yourself requires you to go beyond the make-believe, the pretending. Society over thousands of years, millennia, throughout history, has even come up with way stations or different positions, and even gave them titles to kind of make the person believe that they are who their position says that they are. Labels. Labels for positions within society for people to identify the role that this person is supposed to play. But what has happened, the truth of the role, what this person had come to embody. Embody means the whole person has turned into that. So there is not an iota of something that is other than in them, other than completely opposite of what that role indicates for them to be. So we have a lot of titles today, a lot of labels today, words that we use that mean nothing. That's why you have individuals who speak or utter the words like love, truth, justice, honesty, hero. These are just words, labels that don't mean anything. So what has been happening is that we have been worshiping these labels to the point where we have seen them to be the same as actuality, truth, what we truly are. So what I'm trying to say is, people have even convinced themselves to be what they are not. So what they do carry is this label, this name tag, if you will, metaphorical name tag that they carry with them. And every so often during the day, they look down, looking at the label, and to see what is it supposed to say. Oh yes, they have to remind themselves of it. That's a make-believe world. And that's why society has become such a big part of who you are. It shouldn't matter whether society accepts you or not. In all honesty, the person has to be and move and live, and breathe the truth that they feel inside. Now, if there isn't any truth inside, if there isn't something genuine inside, then what will be used is a proxy of it, a label of it, simple name tag. This is what we mean by a person who is shallow, a ghost. Actually, a ghost might have more substance than many of the people that you know in your life. Because the moment you strip them of that position, that role, that name, they have nothing to anchor themselves on. The moment you take them out of a relationship, their center of being is lost, as it were. The moment they lose a job, for example, they lose themselves because they have nothing to fall back on, because they have never had a truth to begin with. They simply used a new label to identify with, to feel comfortable in, to say, ah, this is who I am. There are different levels of this, of course, gradations of this. Levels of intensity, if you will, or levels of superficiality. So if you're wanting to live your life in a way that is truly gratifying, you have to be unafraid to go the distance in exploring, in going deep into authenticity. Now that's going to make you feel uncomfortable on a daily basis, I promise you, if you're living it truthfully. Now this doesn't mean that you have to go against societal norms, let's say, or well, norms could change and mores could change, of course, but what I'm trying to say is you don't have to go ahead and be living a life that brings about unwholesome results, unwholesome both for you and for others. That is not what I'm saying. When you're living a truthful life, when you're really, really going beyond labels, beyond the name tag, beyond make-believe, then you touch the very fabric of existence, the genuineness of life. See, the closest thing to make things easier and not sound so metaphysical or something like that, or philosophical, think of the breath you're breathing right now. It's so authentic. It never lies. And the moment you try to control the breath, things start to go off whack. Things start to become unnatural. That unnaturalness, if we can say that, can be a metaphor, can be a simile, analogy rather, of the fake life that many people you know, probably yourself, is living. That's why when I'm trying to encourage people to meditate, let's say using the breath, it's so hard for people not to want to control the breath. Either it's on its way in, inhalation, the desire to hold on to it inside the body, to try to follow it and try to be with it in the sense that they want to know where the breath is going, force it to do something, and especially on the way out. We even have come to a point as human beings to want to control the breath, to pretend, to use the breath. There was a documentary the other day I was informed about by one of my students to watch, and I tried watching just a portion of it, but then it was so obvious that human beings have even used and have been using the breath to, remember the name tag? To create this make-believe state of happiness by attaining to some goal. And the documentary was about free divers. So they're manipulating the breath pushing themselves to the edge of what is possible, simply to get an award, simply to get a prize, simply to get a world record of the deepest diving, free diving woman in the world, the deepest diving men in the world, the deepest diving, basically how long you can hold your breath and come out alive while having a sticker in your hand that you got it from, let's say, 100-meter depth. And they're trying to inch their way deeper and deeper so that they could beat someone else to the record, a new record. As they are abusing rather, their body, their life, their precious, precious life. For what? Egocentric, absolute nonsensical when you think of it, because so much is riding on it. Not their dreams, but the people that have them as someone special in their lives. They happen to be someone's daughter, or sister, or brother, or friend. Every time they're diving deep into the depths of the sea or ocean, they might be going after their so-called dream, but they are terrorizing the people they love as they pursue this ludicrous goal. Now, some people might not agree to this because, hey, you're going beyond what is, the limits of a human being. The limits of a human being is completely dependent on the authenticity of life that you're living. Otherwise, remember the labels I mentioned? The roles. People have become so shallow that they are craving to get a role, to get a label, to get a place in life, to find their place in life. What's wrong with the place that you were born into? Meaning your body. You have life. You don't have to go around trying to make believe that this is me. I'm the deepest diving woman. I'm the deepest diving man. I made it. I have I've become an astronaut, or I've climbed Mount Everest. Who cares? I think it's the Mademoiselle cranes that fly over Mount Everest on a yearly basis on their migration path. You think they care? They're even actually flying higher than Everest. You're never going to be able to beat a sperm whale. And how long you're going to hold your breath as you go deep. Or a squid. Well, actually, a sperm whale, because they're mammals. They have lungs. So try to go beat them. In how deep you can go and how long you can hold your breath. It's just nonsensical. But you have something that a sperm whale will never have. An opportunity to understand, to gain wisdom, to understand the ludicrousness of this whole endeavor of trying to outdo being you. So people are running away from living truthfully by adopting these make-believe roles, goals we call them. We give them these lofty titles. The number one in the world, the fastest man in the world. Is that going to make you wiser? You can be the most disgusting person to be around and be the fastest running human being. But society gave you a label, a fake label, and it's completely unreliable, absolutely impermanent. And that's why most of these people are always on the edge of their seat. They're always terrified. They're always waiting. That's why they keep reading newspapers, or not, nowadays, checking the news, especially in their area of expertise. A very, very wealthy, so-called successful CEO is always on the lookout to see if somebody actually beat him or her in having more money. The runner is always thinking, I'm wondering who in the world might actually show up to beat my record. That's why you have many record holders, whether they're Olympic or some athlete, or doesn't have to be an athlete, going and beating their own records simply to create some level of safety zone. Well, this is no different than those so-called rulers or conquerors who want to expand, like the guy that history calls Alexander the Great. I don't consider him, and many, many people don't consider him in any way, shape, or form to be great. Well, his ego was great. His lack in understanding that everything is temporary, his ignorance was truly great. Because before he was like even 35, he croaked and died. and his empire was divided among 3 of his generals. All that. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that had gathered around him, his armies, had left their families on these quote-unquote adventures of his to go and expand. Why? Because he had daddy issues. He wanted to prove himself more powerful, more able than his father was. Nonsensical stuff. Make believe. I mentioned the breath to be the great authenticator. There is one more. That is death. The certainty of death is the great equalizer. If that woman who's diving to reach her goal, meanwhile she's sacrificed the lives of her parents, her father who's sitting in Rome, let's say, was terrified every single time. He's always checking to see if his phone is going to ring, saying, we're sorry to inform you that your daughter went down and didn't come up. We can't find her, or she's dead, or she's brain dead. Or she's now never going to be the same. You're always terrified. And all of this has to do with delusion. So, today's message is about, please don't live make-believe lives. Be truthful to you. There's nothing wrong with just being you. In fact, we can even remove the word just, because it's not easy to be you. If you're living truthfully, whatever the role is. I don't see a difference between the life you're living and the wealthiest CEO. You might actually have a more of a ethical backbone because you have the guts to say no to certain things because you realize that this brings suffering to yourself or to others. So you say no. You're not blinded by your ego-oriented, egocentric, blind compass of morality in you. You think about the consequences. You don't say me, 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 what's in it for me first. You look beyond the name tag. In fact, so long as you're looking away, you're not identifying with the name tag that society has promised you or has given you. The more you look away from that, slowly, slowly, what happens is quite magical. It starts to disintegrate and disappear completely. Where people look at you and say, oh, you are so-and-so, and you have a hard time believing it. Or coming to grips with it, to identify with it, because it's not concrete. Because you have something deeper. You're no longer skin deep. You're deeper. You're not living a make-believe life. And the true people who have been transforming themselves, that's what I mean by truly transforming themselves, after some time, if they go and spend time with people that they've known in the past, because everybody's functioning on that, most people are functioning on the superficial level, they might look at you and still consider you or see you as to be of that level. Meanwhile, you far transcended it. You're not there anymore. And that's very important for you to understand, to realize that you have gone so deep into your authenticity. You're comfortable. You're not going to be put in the cage of labels to fit the palettes, to fit the narratives and mindsets of these other people around you. This is truly the path of the hero. because you've changed yourself. You're no longer, you don't even need the title of a hero or this or that. You're beyond it. But that is a futile effort on the part of society to still try and somehow manage to put a label on you, even though it doesn't fit. It's like sticking a name tag onto the ocean. It doesn't stick. That's what but society can call it that. That's why this is, when I was a child, I was, geography classes, elementary school, primary school, and the teachers would say, this is the Pacific Ocean, this is the Atlantic Ocean, this is this ocean. And I would look and look and look at the map, this and that, and I would look for a line, demarcation line between the Atlantic and the Pacific, and I would not find it. Who's labeling this? The Caribbean, this sea, the Black Sea, and this sea, the Mediterranean. And then the Mediterranean flows into the Atlantic. I would look, and I couldn't find anything. In pictures and this, that. It's the same thing, one could say. When we're trying to label the person, but that's what schools have been doing to children. Educational systems are set up, unfortunately. It's a big sham that we have for over 100 years. Over 100 years. Manipulation of the brain of the child from a very, very young age, where we're becoming indoctrinated. And that's why it's so hard for the person to break free. That's why you will never have a teenager or even an adult who's come out of the educational system, and this is across the world, okay? You take that person and you compare this person to another, same age, same height, this, that, gender even, to someone coming out from some tribe that did not go through the system, capital S, the corrupt educational system that indoctrinates. It clips your wings, basically. That's what it's doing. That's why the schools never teach you about how to make money. They never teach you about human values. When I was a teacher at schools, whether it's primary and then junior and high school and then college and up, there was still, I could see, I could take a chance. I would challenge whatever was imposed upon teachers. This is what you're supposed to teach. Well, be quiet. Just get out of the room. You're not there in the room. The system cannot invade that sacred space between a teacher and the students. That's where true growth, that's where adventure begins, of self-discovery. But that's lost now. Because true educational system is supposed to help the person to be given the tools of how to think, not given boundaries of what to think. Put them in a cage, in a prison. That's what school systems are doing. And that's why you have majority of the 20-some-year-olds, 30-some-year-olds, 40-some-year-olds coming out of the educational systems, at least in the West now, well, the East is catching on pretty fast, that are unwise. They don't know how to think. Really, and this is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing, unless some other factor, some other variable is there in their lives, and they also have the desire in them from past lives and etc. The seeds are there for them to be curious enough to go ahead and do the self-education, to pierce through this bubble. So that person from the tribe somewhere, who has never walked through some K through 12 school, kindergarten to a 12th grade, or gone to, some other similar system, other than the nature that she or he was surrounded by. You're going to find a huge difference between them and someone wearing a suit or a dress, pretending to be somebody they're not. Men have forgotten how to be men. Women have forgotten to be women. People have forgotten to be people. That's why you have all this confusing, idiotic identifications that keep coming up, that are pushed into people's brains. And people are gulping them down. Yeah, sure, why not? This is really the apex of make-believe. To the point where we have come to believe the stuff that we're making people to believe, which is just incredible, not in a good way. So, at least in your case, when you're looking in the mirror, at least when you're living your life, when you're breathing, live authentically. Stop with this make-believe business. Stop trying to convince yourself of something. Just learn how to breathe for once, truthfully, and understand the value of the presence of death. No one's going to get out of here alive. There's nothing to be afraid of death. There's nothing to be afraid of. Death is actually your best friend, which necessitates that you look at what is truly valuable. This interaction that's happening between you and this person standing in front of you, somewhere, sitting across from you, who you're interacting with. Make it truthful. Make it genuine. Make it kind. Make it wholesome. Even if it's something to do with making money or this or that and building relationships, it's all wonderful. But make it authentic. Don't sell out, because so long as you're living a make-believe life, you're selling yourself out. You're selling life out. So there's nothing authentic going on between you and this interaction with this person. That's why families have lost their values. Father and son, they don't have that. You will never turn to your father and call him by his first name. What happened there? Well, it's a cultural. No, it's not. No, it's not. There's a sacredness there that is lost. So it's time for you to recapture that. And the way to do that is by finding truth and value, authenticity in the life that you're living. And by extension, those around you will be affected, whether they admit to it or not. But you will definitely see the DNA change right in front of you, the transformation take place in front of you.